All right. So I'm really glad to introduce our speakers today. Let's start with Karima Gulick, who's a registered patent attorney. She helps clients protect and defend their intellectual property. Before becoming a patent and trademark attorney, Karima spent 8 years as an aerospace engineer, building aircraft pilot controls and electromechanical systems and designing software for in-flight entertainment. She dedicated her career to counseling businesses within the tech and creative communities, combining her passions for engineering and the law. Karima is a polyglot and guides her clients through legal matters in French, English, Arabic, and Spanish, and she's dabbling in Italian as well. She's also the host of the Gen Y Lawyer podcast, a show where she interviews innovative lawyers and shakes things up in the legal industry. Next, we have Kristen Roberts, who's the founder and managing attorney of Trestle Law, APC. Kristen primarily focuses her practice on helping businesses and their owners develop, protect, and police their brands and other valuable company intellectual property, including trademarks, copyrights, and patents. Kristen is highly experienced in the fields of trademark and copyright law, both from transactional as well as litigation standpoints. Kristen has litigated cases in both the Central and Southern Districts of California, as well as cases before the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. In addition to zealously representing and protecting her clients' intellectual property interests, Kristen is well-versed in the areas of business law and employment counseling. She represents multiple companies throughout San Diego and California as outside counsel for all legal matters. Next, we have Abe Leachy, who's a native New Yorker with a background as a lawyer, entrepreneur, and musician. After graduating from Cardozo Law School in 2010, Abe began a 6-year career in corporate litigation at Kasowitz, Benson, Torres, and Friedman, where, among other matters, he represented global brands in various IP litigation. After leaving Big Law to pursue a more entrepreneurial path, Abe and his wife started a fashion brand where he was CEO for 3 years. Realizing he missed being a lawyer and that startups had a need for knowledgeable and experienced attorneys in the field, he decided to start his own firm, the Leachy Law Firm, where he's an owner. Leachy Law is a New York City-based law firm, primarily focusing on representing startups across multiple verticals, including tech, fashion, e-commerce, marketing, social media, influencers, and brand consultants. Andrea is a small business attorney shaking up the legal industry with her Legalpreneur membership. Her membership provides a guaranteed 24-hour response rate and other amazing amenities for small businesses. After less than a year at a large law firm working with large businesses, Andrea realized her true passion was helping small businesses embrace and protect their business and intellectual property. With just under 2 years with her own firm, Andrea has quickly become the go-to attorney for entrepreneurs, protecting everything from their brand names to their courses and blog posts. All right, thank you so much. Take it away.
Thank you, Bree, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to be here with you today. We have some rock star trademark attorneys, some top filers of trademarks in the nation, single-handedly doing amazing things. So super excited to be here and to be learning from these amazing panelists as well. All right. Hearing a little feedback. There's no feedback on your end, right? It's just on my end. Okay. All right. So today's topic, growing your practice with digital marketing. Just a little brief overview of what we'll be covering. We're going to be doing a brief presentation from each panelist where they're going to dive into what they do best, how they do things, and the things that have worked for them. Then we're going to do some thematic questions for the panel, for different panelists, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A session. We've already been introduced, so let's dive in. Abe, take it away.
All right. Can I manipulate the slides here?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. Well, I think Bree intro, but I'm Abe Leachy. It's nice to meet you guys, whoever's out there. And So I'm just going to kind of go over my high level of the things that have worked for me and what I, from experience, what anybody who's thinking about starting a firm or growing their firm might find useful. So kind of the overarching theme is that I think a lot of lawyers get kind of trapped into thinking themselves just as lawyers. But I think if you're starting your own firm or if you're growing a firm with a partner or a small firm, that you really need to get your mindset and think about yourself as a business first, that business that provides legal services. So, it might not make sense in the at the outset, but when you start shifting your perspective of thinking of yourself just as a lawyer and more as an entrepreneur that provides a service, which happens to be legal services, you allow yourself the flexibility to think about growing your firm in the same way other businesses would. The only difference here is just the type of service that you provide. So one of the things that's really important to think about is your firm as a brand. Your firm as a business. I'm just kind of going over these slides. And one of the things that I realize is that when you have a solo firm or if you're a small firm, that you and your team are the brand. At least for me, that's my experience. Especially in New York and other states where you can't really come up with clever brand names. You have to actually have the names of the founders or the owners of the firm on the letterhead. Then what you become is the face of the brand. And so you want to think about how you're branding yourself. Let's see. Okay. One thing also is if you're thinking about branding, to think about the type of clients that you're serving, because if you're serving some more stiff type clients in the high stakes corporate world, for example, you're probably going to take a different approach to how you come across than if you're serving startups. And I think you need to be very mindful about the types of clients you're trying to appeal to, because everybody should be themselves, but obviously the way you present the firm, whether it be the website or your social media channel, I think really depends on the types of clients. So that brings me to another point, which is I always tell people just be yourself, because I think a lot of people, especially if you're just coming out of law schools, there's this kind of misconception that you become a lawyer and you have to be this really stiff person, and then like you're a lawyer. And yes, you're a lawyer, but lawyers are people and they're human beings. And I think that most of the time, at least my experience with startup clients, well, people in general in all sorts of fields, is that they really want to connect to somebody that's authentic and that's themselves. And so I would say, everybody's got their quirks. They're weird in their own little ways. And instead of, banishing that and eliminating that part of yourself, I think you should encourage and foster that side of yourself, because A, what's the point of being something you're not, just in any profession? And B, it comes across to clients or prospective clients because they see, okay, this person's a real person. I can relate to them. And, I've got my quirks too. And, you get out of, your private life, and I think you make it more public, you make yourself more accessible on a personal level, the more you can establish trust and kind of relationship when you're talking to new prospective clients, which also means you need to be genuine. So a lot of times I tell like my interns or my associate in little things like in writing emails, my preference, I hate when I get overly formal emails where you're using I am or we will or do not, don't, I'm, will, the way that you would normally talk to a normal person. I think that it comes across as stiff, and I think that people appreciate kind of the more direct communication where you're actually just talking like a normal person, because it's just more effective in communicating what you're trying to explain. So a lot of ways to build your brand presence online, and I'm sure this is going to be talked about by the other presenters. So I'll give my 2 cents on this is, social media, your website, SEO considerations, and creating content. And with social media, I like the rule of thumb where you pick 1 or 2 platforms that works for you, as opposed to trying to spread yourself too thin, at least in the beginning, and create content and a presence on there. So for some of you, it might be LinkedIn, some of you might be Instagram, some of you Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. That would be interesting to see, I guess, from a lawyer, but I'm sure there's a niche for that for lawyers. And just think about what works for you. What kind of personality type are you? Are you better on video, on writing blogs? Are you better on creating memes? All the above. And then where are your clients consuming their media? Are you trying to make this like high caliber decision makers. Caliber is not the right word, but these decision makers at these larger companies that you might find on LinkedIn, or you're trying to connect with startup founders who, of course, are on LinkedIn, but might have an Instagram presence too if they're millennial, or might be more inclined to be on Twitter. So just doing a little research, figuring out where your client base consumes their media and building your presence on there, thinking about what you're comfortable with doing. Because if you're going to create video content and you're just not a comfortable person on video, sure, you can get out of your comfort zone, but I think you start needing to get momentum and build, start rolling the ball so that you get more comfortable with all those things. So I wouldn't hesitate or hold off on doing stuff just because you're not comfortable. Just start doing what you know you can do and just do it. Other things that I do is I put my Instagram handle in my signature block as well as my LinkedIn. So I'll say, follow me on Instagram, and then I'll have a hyperlink to my Instagram page, which is, my firm page, but it's also my personal page. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, which is be yourself. Don't be afraid to share your personal stuff. I mean, I get it. People have certain things they don't want to share. That's fine. But for the most part, I've found success in sharing my personal life and driving prospective clients or existing clients to my page, because in a real way, it establishes a sort of trust even before you actually speak to a prospective client. If they reach out to you and you send a response email to set up a call, they see your Instagram page. I can't tell you how many times I've had people who have become clients say, I was looking for a lawyer. I saw your Instagram page. I saw you're a real person. And I think that goes a long way, because when you see this kind of corporate, sterile, firm page, it does work for certain lines of clients, no doubt. But I think when you're talking about the smaller firm mentality, I think that goes a long way. Let's see. I know Andrea is probably going to talk about this because she does some really good ones, but making content, so like short videos on your Instagram or LinkedIn, like 1 to 2 minute snippets, giving free advice, although you have to put the disclaimer in, obviously, but giving some content, talking about trademark stuff, IP stuff, whatever it is that you focus on, and giving it away for free. So you can establish that trust. People can look at these. You already added value to them because you're providing them with information they may not have otherwise had, or in a way that's just easy for them to understand. And they see your face, they kind of know you a little bit. And then by the time you actually talk to a prospective client, there is that trust that's established already to a degree. Again, be yourself. I think that when you're making videos, it comes across when you're being inauthentic. And I think that that's going to do you a disservice. Another thing that I'm trying to improve on, but I know works really well, is to use that video content and convert it into written content. So if you're making 10 videos about a minute each on different trademark concepts, talking about office action responses, the different types of issues, likelihood of confusion, descriptiveness, specimens, whatever it is, you can go to websites to get that converted to text and then repurpose that into blog posts. So that helps your SEO. So if you put it on your website, those words will start coming up, and the more people that access your website, the better you're going to rank in the Google rankings. Another thing that I love to do, and you have to be careful about this because there are I think each state has different ethical requirements on how to do it, but Google reviews I find to be amazing. And maybe it's Yelp or whatever it is that you find that your clients might be looking at. I like Google because everybody uses Google. And just ask your clients to write a review. If you have a good rapport with the client, you've done good work, ask them to write a review, send them the link to just make it easy for them. Send them the link to where they can write the review. Say, you mind writing a sentence or two about your experience with me? Rate me however you want. You can't tell them to give you 5 stars, but obviously you want to reach out to clients who you've done good work for, and you should be doing good work for everybody. So hopefully that's an easy thing to ask for. And that also is something that I think goes back to the theme of establishing trust, because if somebody's Googling you, if you're reaching out to somebody or you're talking to somebody, a potential new client, they Google you and they see you've got all these 5-star reviews, and not just the stars, but actual context where your clients have written specific anecdotes. That's huge, because then you're not telling them like, yeah, I'm great, hire me. These are your clients. These are real people who are giving their own opinions. And the more reviews you get, there's going to be some content in there that the person that you're trying to get as a new client is going to read it and say, oh, yeah, that resonates with me. That's the type of person that I'm looking for, or not looking for. I mean, not everybody's going to be a fit for you. With cold reach outs, I love doing like the LinkedIn, sending some cold emails. And my advice for anybody who does do that is don't write a novel, because I get reached out to all the time with cold reach outs, and which I like to hustle. But sometimes people will send me, paragraphs upon paragraphs of their whole spiel, and they lose me after the first paragraph, and I'm turned off to it because I find it a bit presumptuous, to be honest. And if you're sending somebody a cold reach out on LinkedIn, for example, give a really quick introduction and invite them to get more information. Say, do you mind if I send you more info? Or, if you want to set up a quick chat, or, do you mind if I send them to your email? Something like that. That's going to go way further than you sending your whole pitch right away, because most people don't want to read that, and they're going to see this lengthy cold reach out, and they're just going to delete it or move on. So, keep it short, to the point, ask if you could send more information, provide your contact info. And if there's a specific problem that you think you can help with, feel free to identify it on a high level. And then, maybe give them some free information too, if it's something that you think you can provide to them. Also, again, avoid being robotic, unless you're a robot, which we may all be in the next 5 years. But for now, we're humans, so speak like a human, because if I get emails and it's very sterile and really just kind of too corporate sounding, I hate that kind of stuff. And I think if you're working with startups or small businesses, most people don't care for that either. And they just want to hear a normal person, because if they're going to be working with you, they want to have the feeling that it's going to be somebody easy to work with. I think this might be in my last or close to last, and you guys let me know if I'm kind of eating up time. But the communications channels, I think you need to be mindful of what your clients use and be open to using all of those channels. So, everybody uses email, and some people use WhatsApp, but a lot of people use Telegram, WhatsApp, Zoom obviously is big now, LinkedIn, Sideline. There's a bunch of channels, and I think or WeChat for international clients. So just being open to understanding how those channels work, because the more accessible you can make yourself, the wider net you can cast to work with clients who may have different preferences. I mean, I talk to people on Instagram DM sometimes too, or Facebook Messenger. So that's just something to consider. If you're not familiar with some of these things, then get familiar with them, because I think that's going to go a long way in how you can communicate with your clients. And then as far as the sales pipeline, I think a lot of people get hung up on, if you're talking to a client, you want them to become a client right away. But I think that's a big mistake to put that kind of pressure on yourself and on the client, because you kind of emanate this desperation, which I think is counterproductive. And and after you do it for a while, you get more comfortable with this. But I have a lot of prospects who I'll talk to, and they don't hire me right away. Some of them do, which is great. But some of them, you keep the conversation open, and then, send a couple of follow-ups over time. Don't overdo it. But the value of having a long tail lead is amazing, because I have clients who become clients, prospects who I talk to about a year later, and then I have, our email chain, I can reference what we've talked about. They say, hey, we spoke a year ago about this issue. I'd like to engage you to do this or to do something different. And so the more you can keep it open-ended, if it's not somebody who's willing to convert into a client right away, the better it's going to be. Because if you start pressuring and become pushy, I find that turns a lot of people away. It might work for some people. I know it's a sales tactic. It's not for me. So if you're not one of those people who's pushy, don't be afraid to accept that some leads might not convert right away. They might be longer tail lead. And then also, when you're talking to prospects, I'm a big fan of providing free content. So if somebody comes to me with a trademark issue, like they have an office action, I'll look at their office action. I'll give them my ideas, like, you could do this, this, and that. And that might mean that they can go on and do it by themselves. Sometimes they do, most of the times they don't. And I think that if you can give value and show somebody, like, hey, here's your problem, here's how I think we can fix it, here's how much it's going to cost, now it's easier for them to just say yes or no, but at least they're not wondering, the follow-ups. It's just the ball's in their court. And if they want to go and use that and do it themselves, fine. Most people if they're at that stage anyway, they realize that they do need a lawyer, or it's going to be beneficial to have one. So I wouldn't be afraid to give free content, and also be generous with your time. Some people charge for consultations. I don't. I think initial consultations for free are key to how I've grown my business, because again, you want to be able to show somebody that you can add value right away and in a specific way, so that they can make a better decision and they know that you can actually handle the issue that they have. Otherwise, how many people are you going to forget or not going to get coming to you if you're charging for these consultations? You're going to have a fraction of the leads that you would otherwise have. Oh, I have a lot of slides here. Okay. So if you just have a transparent online presence, solid online reviews, create online content, build that trust before you get any calls or you're in the middle of a call. Know your value. Don't be afraid to ask for what you think you're worth. I see a lot of people undercutting themselves all the time. You want to be negotiable because you see long-term value to a client, obviously fine, but be confident in when you're about to go to that threshold of actually converting a client, to actually say, hey, this is my fee, here's how much I'm worth, and be confident about it. Because unless your fee is outrageous, most people know the range for legal fees. And if you're more expensive than some others, then you prove your value because you've already provided them information, or because you're really good at what you do. And then some little things. I like to use DocuSign for engagement letters. I also like through my CRM, I have a credit card processing company that I integrate with, LawPay, which is great. I'm sure a lot of you know of it. And you get a little bit of a hit on the processing fee, but I always find that if I can send something through DocuSign to be signed and then send an invoice that can be paid with a credit card online, you're going to convert clients much quicker. Nobody wants to print stuff out. Nobody wants to send you a check. Some people do, most don't. So the longer you make people wait and the extra steps you have to create, the less likely they're going to convert. So make your prospective clients or existing clients' life easier and give them value, be yourself. And I think that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Abe, for that great presentation. We have some questions about reach outs and cold reach outs. We'll take those at the end. Kristen, take it away.
Hello, I'm Kristen Roberts. I am the founder and managing attorney of Trestle Law APC. We're a full service intellectual property firm. You kind of already got my spiel in the beginning with Bree. I do have a little bit of a cold. I am COVID negative, but I might have to cough. And if I do, I'll mute myself when that happens. And so I wanted to talk to you today about growing your practice with digital marketing, specifically social media. I know a lot of people are wondering, how do I get a lot of followers? If I have this big following, it will necessarily translate to more clients, more consults, things like that. And that can be true. But more often than not, I've found that social media is kind of a weird world. It looks like, you see people that are really successful on social media with, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of followers. And, you think that translates to, millions of dollars in the bank, multiple six figures. And that's not always the case. Many times it's not the case at all. And so, I kind of wanted to chat with you today about that, because I think it's a little bit deceiving to think, oh, if I just build my social media following to this many followers, I get the swipe up feature on Instagram, all of my problems are solved. Just sort of to talk about growing your practice with social media, you really want to start with that kind of low hanging fruit first, which always tends to be, referrals, and, sort of really cultivating the network that you already have, people that you already know, reaching out to those people and doing sort of that really kind of old school marketing. That stuff really does work, and it really does pay dividends. And so I sort of turn my attention to social media as sort of an additional platform, an additional way to sort of cast my net wider, not the way, not the seminal way that I'm going to get all of my clients or grow my practice that way. It's really great if you want to create, free, valuable content, reusable content that you can kind of drive leads, and position yourself as an expert in the field, right? So it can kind of create a little bit of that legitimacy that maybe you don't have, because maybe you're a smaller firm, you don't have like the huge marketing budget that maybe some of the bigger law firms have. So this is a way to really kind of, like Abe said, generate that sort of trust, that that likability factor that's really important, because ultimately that sort of age-old adage is really true. People want to do business with people they like, know, and trust. And if you can develop that on social media, it's a really easy way to do that. Because it's free and it's accessible to a lot of people. Millions of people use it. Um, but a lot of lawyers tend to not really structure their social media plan. It sort of starts out as, hey, this is my personal page, and I don't want to say guilty of that, but I have done that in the past as well, where I started out my social media, my Instagram page primarily is just me. And then I also have my business's Instagram page. So I have two handles, and I work on one and not the other. And I don't really have a plan for one and the other. And as your following gets bigger and as your platform gets bigger, it becomes more important to sort of hone in on a strategy for what it is you're putting out there in terms of content, because the algorithms that are pushed out on social media, through Instagram, through, well, Facebook owns pretty much all of them now, but the algorithms are such that it can filter you out if you're not sort of pushing certain kinds of content. So right now Instagram's really focused on reels. So learning how to use those reels can be helpful to you because it can kind of get you to the top and get you featured a little bit more. Um, but that becomes more important, like I said, as your platform starts to grow. If you're just really starting to use them initially, I would say it doesn't really matter as much. Create some, branding materials. What I did was I got a photo shoot done where I used like a number of pictures. I got my headshots done, and then we did like a lifestyle shoot as well. So I was like me walking down the street, me sitting at a table, me holding my phone, me typing at my computer, right? So, and you can repurpose those photographs over and over and over again in various social media content. So you're not, you see all these like beautiful pictures and you're like, man, I can't do that. Even if you don't have the budget to hire a photographer, you can always go out with your iPhone or your phone and take pictures of yourself, get your partner, husband, girlfriend, wife, whoever it is to come with you, maybe take some pictures. And that way you can use them sort of strategically. So when you're putting that valuable content out, you're re-sharing it with these sort of consistent images. That's, like I said, just for Instagram. You can also do that for Facebook as well. But more often, for personal purposes, it's sort of disjointed and it kind of doesn't really always convey the message that you want, which is, hey, I'm a business. I'm putting my information out there for you to consume as a potential client. So one other thing that I see a lot of people do is really wasting time on social media. And by wasting time, I mean not having a purpose for putting your content out there. So you're sort of like, oh, hey, this is my kid eating a sandwich, right? Or, hey, this is me, walking down a trail, which is fine if you want people to just know who you are, and you're just sort of connecting that you're a person. But if you're using it to sort of draw clients in and to get them to understand that you're putting valuable content out there, then it becomes a little bit more important to actually use your photographs and your videos and your message sort of more strategically. So and we all know that social media can be a really big time suck. So that's why I always say to have like a little bit of a plan. Hey, this week it's my kid's birthday, for example. My daughter's just turned 2 yesterday. So I do have a post about her, but I might have a little bit more on motherhood this week and entrepreneurship, as opposed to some of the other things. A couple weeks ago, it was Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Week. And I've experienced a miscarriage before. So I talked about that and how it impacts me as a business owner, right? So I sort of bring in elements of my life that are personal, but also impact me as an entrepreneur, a business owner, and an attorney. So I can put that content out as well. That way I'm connecting to people, they can relate to me, but they can also see me as a trusted resource and an expert in my field. So ultimately it comes down, for me, I actually do what Abe does, which is I focus on one or two platforms. The platforms that I focus on are Instagram and Facebook. The reason I focus on those two is, first of all, Facebook sort of requires you to be connected. You sort of need a Facebook account in order to run Facebook ads for any kind of, free lead magnets that you're going to be running, anything like that. So you kind of need that platform. Plus, I've had such a long history on Facebook. I started Facebook when I was in college in 2004, when you needed a .edu address to even have a Facebook account. So I have a really long history of using it. So that can kind of help in terms of visibility. I have an active community of friends that for some reason, still want to hear what I have to say on Facebook, even though in my opinion, it's become sort of a cesspool of opinions these days. And that's another kind of point to don't waste your time, right? Don't get into sort of the keyboard wars with people. Don't waste your time, debating people on social media. Yeah, you might get some comments that you don't like. That's what the delete features are for, right? So I don't discourage discourse, but if someone's going to come at me and like slide into my DMs and start attacking me, I'm not really going to pay attention to that person, because at the end of the day, it's social media. It's not real life, right? Social media really is sort of the prettiest picture you can paint of your life. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to tell real things that are happening to you, but you're not always going to get the full picture, and you never can on social media. So I don't I don't think that you should waste your time trying to sort of justify your presence online. Unless that's what your goal is, right? Unless you're really trying to drive that discourse. One of my friends and clients runs a really popular Instagram page, and she's a mom and also an attorney, and she's a workers' rights advocate. And so she really puts out some of that more controversial content because she's really trying to get people to engage with it. So if that's your plan, your social media plan, then that's something you can do. Um, So like I mentioned before, I do what Abe suggested, which is picking a platform. And I don't think it makes sense to focus on a lot of different ones until you can sort of spend the money or have the budget to sort of delegate that to maybe somebody else. Because for me, if I spent my time focusing on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on, all of these platforms, on YouTube, creating all of this content, I would never get legal work done. And so and that's really what the bread and butter of my business is legal services. And so yes, I have a team. I can delegate as much to that team as possible, but eventually I have to review the work. The buck stops with me when it comes to the legal work. So I have to make sure that it's all running smoothly and all of the work is reviewed and the clients are happy. And that is the full-time job. It's not social media. And if you're not careful, social media can become your full-time job if you're spending a lot of time doing this and making pictures and doing videos. That's why I always recommend doing it in like block chunks. So if you're going to record a video, record like 3 or 4 videos at once, and then you can repurpose them. You can caption them all at once. I highly recommend that you caption all of your videos, because it really does create a higher watch view rate, because most people are sitting with their phones, let's face it, at work, staring at them, and they're not watching with sound on. So, and it's also accessible for people with disabilities. So I would highly recommend it. Excuse me, I'm going to have a cough fit. Excuse me. So, but yes, pick 1 or 2 platforms that you plan on pushing that content out, because like Abe mentioned so astutely, you can always repurpose that content for other things. So I have a lot of content. My platforms are Instagram and Facebook. Instagram more so than Facebook. I sort of keep Facebook there as sort of like a test. I sort of test things out on Facebook to see if, oh, people got really fired up about this. I was like, oh, that would be good on Instagram, or this is maybe a little too, opinionated. And look, I'm not saying you have to sort of, clean yourself up or whatever and, not be a person. But for me, I am a business person. And so I might not put some of my more controversial content on Instagram, because I use Instagram primarily as sort of my like cold lead magnet. So I am a little bit more sterile, I want to say, on Instagram than I am on my personal Facebook page, because that's really where all of my, my friends and family exist. So they know what's up with all of this. So, so if you're thinking about who your main clients are, who is your ideal client base. For me, Instagram was sort of a natural choice, because the majority of my clients were in the health, wellness, food, CPG, consumer packaged goods world. So they're all posting pictures on Instagram of their products, of their food. So that's really where they were going in terms of growing their following and things like that. So it made a lot of sense for me to be on that platform as well, so I could engage with them. So there's really no like right answer. Instagram was right for me, but it doesn't mean it has to be right for you. LinkedIn could be right for you. Just really kind of think about where people that you want to work with, where those potential clients that you want to hire you are going and posting their content, and then focus on that platform. Because that's really what's going to do you the best good. I always say go where the clients go. I probably could get better at networking with other attorneys. But I've always sort of immediately honed in on like, oh, this is where the entrepreneurs go, or this is where, and when we can't do in-person events anymore, I don't do as much in-person networking. Yeah, we can do the virtual coffee and things like that, but having that accessibility through social media has been really big. So now is a really great time to, try and grow that. And then that sort of brings me to my next point is delegating out. I see a lot of firms that just instantly delegate out their social media presence. And I actually kind of think that's a little bit premature, especially if you're just developing a social media presence. Because if you haven't developed your voice, if people don't really have a sense of who you are as a person, delegating that to somebody else is going to be really, really hard. So you can hire the best social media strategist out there to do your social media for you. But if you don't have an idea of what content that you want to put out there, if you don't have an idea of what message that you want people to understand about you, what kind of cases that you work on, what kind of lawyer that you are, that it doesn't matter who you hire, because the message isn't going to be clear and it's not going to be you. So people are going to get one thing on social media and then they're going to come to you and you're going to have to pretend to fit into the box that your strategist sort of created for you. So, if you're running that sort of personal account, my personal account has more followers than my business account. Now, I'm working on that with somebody now, right? So now that I have kind of enough of a practice going and enough presence on my personal page, and my goal is to sort of get people to move over to the business page so I can sort of focus that personal page on personal stuff, it does make sense to hire somebody to help me with that. But that's where you can kind of delegate out certain things, but I'm still very involved in the strategy, right? So I'm saying, yes, I like this. No, I don't like that. I want the messaging to look more like this. And what you can actually do is comb through your old content. If you're going from like a personal page to a business page, and you've been offering sort of business advice and, intellectual property advice on your personal page, have that strategist comb through your old content to come up with a content calendar that then you can then promote out on your business page. So that is something that you can hire somebody else to do, because if I had to do that myself, it would just, it's not getting done now. So that's why I had to hire somebody else out to do that. But I think it's really important to remember that a following doesn't translate to more business. It doesn't always translate. Sometimes it can. It can often result in more opportunities, right? So people will start, the more followers you have in media, they'll say, oh, they have 50,000 followers. That means that they must, enough people are following them that they must have something good to say. Let's bring them on to talk about X, Y, and Z. So it can get you more opportunities in terms of like speaking, presenting, things like that. But in terms of like actual closed business, I don't think that a following on social media translates to dollars in the bank. Just a second. Excuse me. So just remember that, because it is important. Growing a social media following can help, but it's not the end all be all. Excuse me.
I see a few questions from the from on chat here, and I promise we'll address them just in a few minutes.
And I will try not to die. So leveraging a smaller following can still, like me, I only have 2,400 followers. So I don't have
It's a lot,
a huge
Kristen.
Well, most of my clients, the clients that I work with, have hundreds of thousands of followers. Mm-hmm. So compared to them, I have a very small following. But usually what that means is my following is excuse me. Usually what that means is they know me personally. So you can reach out a little bit easier. They know who you are as a person. So when you do send like a direct message or a request to, hey, can I do a live with you and offer some free content to somebody? or to your audience, that can be a great way to leverage. So I am so sorry. I have a cold.
No, you're good.
So that can be a really great way to leverage. So, but don't just go sliding into people's DMs like a creep, because nobody likes that. So final point, again, while social media can be a tool, it can also be a really big distraction and take away from your firm's profitability if you use it incorrectly. So that's all I really had to say on that. And I'm going to mute myself again before I go into a coughing fit. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you for battling through that cough too. That's impressive. Okay, so I'm going to keep my presentation really short, but I just wanted to share a little bit what worked for me. If I had to redo it all over again, what is, where did I get the most bang for my buck, essentially? When I first started, I had more time than money, so I couldn't really hire an SEO company or anything like that. Most of them wanted $2,000 a month recurring and not seeing results for months, and that's still something that I'm not willing to do. But a few things that helped. Back in the day, people used to look up in the yellow pages or even ask for referrals. Funny story, a few weeks ago, a co-partner of one of my current clients didn't even know that we were working on his trademarks, calls me separately without his partner looking for a trademark attorney. And then he gives me the mark and I say, clear conflict right there. And so he gives me the name of the company, being these are two business partners and they're not even asking each other out for referrals. So if you think people are still asking for referrals, they're not. They're going and Googling and trying to find someone essentially in there that is going to do the work. I apologize. I'm going to remove my headphones. I'm hearing a little feedback. Ooh. Yeah, so essentially, all right, I'm back. That froze a little bit. Can you hear me okay? Okay, all right. So the old adage, if you build it, they will come. I'm sorry, that does not work. If you build a website, hope for people to come to you, that's never going to happen. So here are a few actionable things that you can do to, to start getting your website noticed and building a little bit of backlinks. A few things that I see a lot of attorneys not doing is they'll have a website, but then they won't claim their directory listings anywhere. Google My Business, Bing, Yelp, Avo, your state bar, Super Lawyers, Justia, US News and World Report. All of these things are free directories where you can list yourself. And I don't list myself on those because I expect business to come from those, even though it helps with Google My Business and Yelp. But I do it mostly to have backlinks come into my website from authoritative websites. And that helps in the sense if you have reviews on your Google or Google My Business, even if you have 100 of them, they won't show up in the front page unless it's a trusted website and you're getting other links from other websites. So that's something that helps. Claim your listings, complete all of your online profiles. It does not hurt. It doesn't cost you anything. So if you have time, just do it. Another thing, so basically this is essentially citation and building local citations, getting listed on those local directories, getting listed on social media, etc. Make sure that you have consistency, name, address, phone number. Here are some tools and some links that I'm including in the presentation, just for you to check out basically what your local SEO test score is, what you can do to increase those. And there are services if you don't have the time to do this, but some of these you can do by hand. And I'm listing also some of the best citations for attorneys. So FindLaw tends to be one of them, lawyers.com, Yellow Pages, Super Pages, etc. I don't pay for the ones that you're supposed to pay for. I just do the free listings. Some of these can be quite a bit for listing on their website. I don't need it, so I haven't had to use it, but I know some other attorneys that use it and like it. Online, a lot of times attorneys are technically afraid of putting themselves out there, or on getting a Google listing where people can add reviews, or a Yelp listing where people can add reviews, mostly fearing that they'll get negative reviews. Well, that does not really help, because if someone wanted to give you a negative review, even if you don't exist on the platform, they can go and create that platform and put that negative review for you. So if that's something that's holding you back, it probably, it's something that it's not really a founded fear, because they can still do it other ways. And it's all about really managing those online reviews as well. I had 2 negative reviews since I started 3 years ago, and most of them came from people who didn't even make it through the intake process. One was supposed to get a callback. The callback did not happen within the 15 minutes. He was fast on Yelp, documenting how he had a callback scheduled and he didn't. But something as simple as reaching out to him, I emailed him, I called him back right after that. His matters were taken care of, and he essentially removed that right away. So some of the platforms to grow your online reputation, Google My Business is always great. I like Yelp, but if you're going to be listing yourselves on these platforms, make sure you have proper keywords. There aren't, and especially for your area, there probably aren't a lot of trademark attorneys. So make sure that you have trademark attorney in there in your business listing. So a few things that we've tried. It can be really difficult to get reviews from clients. So at the end of a matter, especially for trademarks, when we're sending out the registrations, I always like to have a handwritten note, essentially saying that it was a pleasure working with them, what we liked about their business, what I liked about their business, and if they found our services to be satisfactory, to please leave us reviews. Some people will do it, some people won't. So it's still something that I do just because I like to have that handwritten note going out with my registrations. A couple of other things that we've tried was having someone call them at the end of the matter and doing a survey, and writing down essentially what they say, and then at the end sending them an email saying, thank you so much for taking the time to complete our survey. Things that you said during your meeting with us. If you don't mind, here are some links if you'd like to share your experience. And then that way it gets over the hurdle of having to write something, which a lot of people don't want to do because they don't know what to write. So if you have that call with them, it helps a little bit. And then 2, you're sending your links in there, like Abe said, just to make it easier for them. And then have fun, be creative, stay within the guidelines of the platforms, and don't forget about ethics rules, of course. Content marketing. So I'm seeing a few questions in the chat about how to best deal with this. When I first started, it was right when, I believe it was Kylie Jenner saying that Snapchat was dead and Snapchat died. So I didn't want all of my content essentially residing somewhere that was just going to die within a month or 2. So I wanted to be more in control of my content. And the best platform I found for that is really having my website as a primary content platform, and then sharing that content through various social media platforms. So there's a question about using platform Hootsuite and things like that. So my recent way of doing things, or system of doing things, is I'll write out a few notes about content that I want to do. I'll shoot a video, do a transcription of that. I'm currently using happyscribe.com, and I'll put it down in the chat. And the transcription rate is really good. I use that to clean it up, put a blog post out, and then have that content share it through various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. And my content also was stopped existing for a little while because I got busy. So I had to hire a virtual assistant. She's in another country, but she's doing amazing, and it forces me to essentially send out content every week to her for her to just clean up and help share it on various platforms. Most law firms' websites are basically in elaborate brochures, and that really does not help to bring content. No one is going to come to that website unless they were coming your way anyways and looking for your website specifically. A few things that I found to help with content and what to write about and how to rank higher for that content is niching down. So if you are catering, especially for trademark, there's a lot of content out there on how to pick the best, strongest marks, the difference between, your generic, descriptive, fanciful marks, difference between principal, supplemental, register. And I try to write content with the end user in mind. So for example, I'm in the aerospace industry. A lot of my content is going to be catered to that, and that helps me rank a little higher because there is not a lot of content out there specifically for what I'm doing. So if you have a niche industry, if you cater to photographers, if you cater to event planners, make sure to have content specifically written for that industry. And making sure that that your content is tailored towards that. And metrics, keep tracking your marketing efforts. So something else that I see a lot of people doing is putting out all these great content on various platforms, but then you ask the attorneys, where are you getting the bulk of your business from? And they have no idea because there is no tracking. So what we do is at intake, we ask where the clients found us. And if it was a referral, we want to make sure that we're thanking our referrals properly. Another thing about online reputation, and it doesn't really help just with the clients, although they come ready to trust, mostly because they've read the reviews. And some of them will tell me, I picked you not because you had the most reviews, but because you had the most genuine ones. Also, referral partners, other attorneys looking to send their high net worth clients, but not sure who to send those to. They'll do a search, or they'll have their assistant do a search. And some of my biggest portfolio clients came from other attorneys, M&A attorneys, other business attorneys who have found me online and wanted someone to send their trademark clients to. But make sure you're keeping track of your metrics so you know what works and what doesn't. And up next, Andrea, but I know she's having some connectivity issues. In the meantime, let's take some of these questions that came in through the chat. And Abe, this was to you. What's the best way to handle cold reach outs, and what success have you had with the cold reach outs?
It really depends on, is my mic on, by the way? I had muted it, but it depends on your target market. But if you can get, I would start with your network through LinkedIn, for example, or Facebook, especially if you're just starting out, just to get more comfortable with doing the cold reach outs. And then just figuring out where your target market is and how you can get contact information for decision makers. I've found a lot of success in sending these kind of either cold emails or the LinkedIn messages where you take that, and I have to thank Bree because she helped me when I first started on how to craft these emails, but taking the most kind of, I don't want to say laid back, but just like a more human approach and a less pushy and aggressive approach. And to me, I've seen the most positive responses to those types of emails as opposed to when you're just sending, everything, you're writing a novel. And so avoid doing that. Just be cool, be yourself, see if they want to connect.
Thank you, Abe. Andrea, you're up next. Take it away. I know she's been having a few issues connecting, so I'm not sure. All right, well, let's take the next question from the chat. And I know she'll be back here any minute. Any recommendations on the best ways to tag others as a means to increase interaction?
Are you talking about clients or colleagues, or whoever the questioner is?
Just basic. I think it was during Kristen's presentation.
Oh,
on
like
social
tagging,
media.
like tagging influencers and things like that. Yeah, I mean, you can tag if it's relevant to something. Like normally, what I do is if I'm tagging somebody, it's because I'm either springboarding off of something that they had posted previously. So I'm like referencing a previous post of theirs, and I'll tag them in my post because sometimes you don't. If you're tagging them just in the text and you're adding them in the text, oftentimes if it's a larger influencer, they're not always going to see it. So sometimes that can be good practice to just tag them in the post. And sometimes they'll remove the tag and sometimes they won't. So, but as far as like tagging people in posts go, in my experience, it's not always like a great way of getting people to like read your post if that's what your goal is. A better way is to maybe, if you know them, hey, did you check out my post today? Send it via direct message to them. Hey, if you want to check out my post, this one references your post and I thought that you might like it. And then just leave it at that. But otherwise, I don't really do a lot of like, lightning tagging to get people to like pay attention to my posts. It doesn't really work for me.
If I could add to that, and I work with a lot of influencers, so I deal with these kind of usage rights all the time, and I would just be cautious about tagging. I think what Kristen was saying is good. You don't want to do lightning tags, but especially if they're a client, you should ask before you tag. Like I have clients where I'm really proud of the things we've done, and there's like a news release or something, and I always ask them like, "Hey, do you mind if I post this and tag you?" And most of the time they're cool with it, but I think it's like sometimes it could come up as presumptuous if you don't ask. And I think
Yeah.
mostly if it's a client.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right? I mean,
Mhm.
but I think, if you're just tagging somebody because you're reposting, a non-client, but just somebody posted something that was cool, and you want to just give them credit for the post, I think that's usually fine. And yeah, they might take the tag down, they might not. But if it's done in that way where it's like not because you're trying to trade off their name,
Right.
then I think that's the better practice, where you're just giving them credit for the post as opposed to trying to get their attention, because they usually won't work.
Right.
Maybe it does, but
so you typically don't tag clients before having consent from the clients, correct? Or
yeah, I don't know if it's an ethics rule or not, to be honest. It's just better practice in my opinion, because you want to avoid that awkward situation where your client's like, hey, why did you post and tag me? Some stuff is publicly available knowledge, but they might not want to advertise either at that point, or that who their lawyer is. I mean, that's never happened to me, but just something to think about. Plus, it's also a good opportunity for you to reconnect with a client and talk about the successful reason you are posting. So it kind of, you become front of mind, so to speak. So they're like, oh yeah, we also have to do this or that, and then it's just a good way to continue the business relationship.
okay. Any recommendations on the best ways? No, sorry, we already did that. But what's the most engaging, highest converting content you've put online, and any good stories?
My
Kristen?
highest engaging content, or the content that I put out recently, was I did a COVID parody of Frozen because my kid wanted me to listen to it on repeat. And I'm a singer. I have a degree in music. You wouldn't be able to tell with this awful cough, but I have a
We have to jam, Kristen. I didn't know that.
yeah, I'm actually a classically trained opera singer, but I cut my teeth on like classic jazz and soul torch songs. So yeah, but I did a parody of Frozen that's on my Instagram page, and it got like thousands and thousands of views, and I was like, it has nothing to do with the law. I was like, of course. And then I did two recent parodies, one a Hamilton parody that actually talked about, it was the Wait For It song, but I changed the lyrics to tell people how long they have to wait to get a trademark. So it was like about the trademark process. And it was called How Long Do I Have to Wait For It? And then I did another parody on copyright. It was kind of pretty meta, I thought. That was another song parody that I took from I used the Lord Song Royals music, and then I talked about your, royal copyright rights and that kind of stuff. So that was some of my most engaged content, but it was just because it paired everything that I like: music, lessons on intellectual property, and writing music. So
and then Phil, to answer your question, for me, it was something on, as far as trademarks go. I drafted a blog post on cannabis trademarks, try to keep it as thorough as possible, making sure that my URL has those keywords, cannabis trademarks, making sure that it was long, addressing everything that that I knew, and the state of the law that at the time that I wrote the post. And to my surprise, I have another cannabis trademark attorney colleague, and she was like, "You're ranking really really high for cannabis trademarks." But I had no idea. I had to go back and just search cannabis trademarks, and it ended up being something that actually that I was ranking really high for. But I keep track also with Google Analytics for those things.
Just my quick anecdote, because I need to improve on my content creation, but I started a podcast which I kind of put on hold when COVID started, and I've just been so busy catching up with everything since then. But I would chop up my podcast or do videos of it too. So it was, video recording, and it didn't have anything to do specifically with the law. It was just, it's called The Art of Starting Up, and it was just interviewing startup founders that they were either clients or people I've been investing in companies with, whatever. But when you chop those up into like 2 to 3 minute video segments, you post them on Instagram or LinkedIn, and then you have the interviewee post. And so I've found the most engagement through that. And then that's kind of an indirect funnel into, oh, he's a startup lawyer, and oh, he does this thing or whatever. I think getting eyeballs on you and your brand is, in my opinion, more important than necessarily, what you're doing, the parodies, Chris, and that's brilliant, because you're getting the eyeballs. People are going to see who you are, because like, oh, who is this person? And then at least you have that attention, because let's be honest, certain things are going to get more attention than others, and law is not the most exciting thing to most people. So you can think about ways to make it a little more relevant to their lives, or more intriguing or engaging. I think that's going to be the best thing for you to do.
Andrea?
I feel so bad for her. She's getting these
I was really
difficulties.
excited about her influencer marketing. Okay, we'll move to some of the panel questions, the thematic questions on the panel, and then we'll come back. Actually, she might be here. Hold on 1 second.
So I have dialed in. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Andrea.
Okay.
Yes.
So I find this very ironic that I am presenting on digital marketing and I cannot actually get my camera to show on here. But hey, that's what happens. I'm literally in the middle of this huge move. And yeah, that's what happens. But it's all good. So thank you guys for being patient. Thank you guys for having me here today. My big thing is influencer marketing, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But first, I want to really hone in on the point that not everybody has to actually be great at digital marketing to have a successful firm. So that's just really where I have found where I kill it with marketing, is through online marketing and digital marketing and connecting with people online. There are some people that have multi-million-dollar firms and have never posted anything online, and that is perfectly fine. So if you guys are sitting there and you're just like, I can't even imagine doing digital marketing, I can't imagine doing any of this. Well, guess what? You don't have to. And what's really important is to know where your audience is, because my audience is online. So I have to be online to get that audience. If your audience is not online, if your audience is Fortune 500 companies, you're not going to connect with those CEOs on Instagram. I'll just tell you that right now. You're not going to. You don't have to worry about actually connecting with those people online. Well, but if you do want to connect with small business owners online, influencers, and really that generation of social media and the clients there, then you do have to be good at digital marketing. Or you don't even have to be good. You just have to be there, because just by having a presence, trust me, you're ahead of the curve from a lot of people. So really where I have found my niche is influencer marketing. And besides influencer marketing, I know Abe and Kristen and Karima, they've all talked about their main social media platforms. My main platforms, they are Instagram, number one. Number two is actually TikTok. And number three is Facebook. So I've actually taken a back seat on Facebook just because I've been really killing it with Instagram and TikTok. I've had a couple of videos go viral on TikTok, and it's grown my following really quickly on there. Instagram, I have a decent following there, which is my largest following. But like you've learned today, your follower count honestly does not matter. I was making multiple six figures when I had 2,000 followers on Instagram. So I promise, your following does not matter. You just have to know how to add value and connect to your ideal audience. And that's something that you have to really hone in on before you figure out where you're going to be online and how you're going to connect with the audience. You have to figure out who your audience is, because if you market to everybody, you reach nobody. So you have to figure out who you're marketing to and figure out how are you going to get in front of those people. And when you get in front of those people, you're not going to tell them, hey, this is what I do, hire me. You have to add value. And I know everybody's talked about that today, but you have to add value. And one thing that I know people didn't touch on is email marketing. Email marketing is huge, and you have to have freebies. I know you've heard people talk about, hey, give away your freebie, create this freebie, do this freebie. All you need is one. Don't go crazy with all the freebies. You just need one freebie and give it away. Give it away, but you have to have them opt in and give you their email list. So right now, I think between my two email lists, we have about 16,000 emails. And that we do paid marketing, but quite frankly, our clients come from our email list, and that email list, that's built exclusively from freebies, which are free opt-ins. The main opt-in that I've had over the past 2.5 years is our trademark checklist. And literally it's just telling them, hey, this is what you have in your business that can be protected with the trademark. Because with small businesses today, they're what I call accidental business owners. They're good at what they do. They have this skill, and now they're monetizing it. But just because they monetize it doesn't mean they know how to be a business owner. So that's what you're there for, is to educate them, to make them realize, hey, oh my gosh, I didn't know I needed all these things. I didn't know I needed to protect my brand with trademarks. I didn't know that I needed to have an LLC or whatever the business needs. It is your job to educate them, to have them basically come to the decision themselves, like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this done, I'm no longer going to have a business. So, and again, this is exclusively for my audience. I know some of us here, we have the same type of audience, small business owners, but again, you may be targeting the Fortune 500 companies, and none of this matters because obviously they have general counsel. But basically, you have to really hone in on your audience. And influencer marketing, where I really have grown my business, is through influencer marketing. And what I mean by that is having other people promote me. And this started, I'll tell you how it started, because it essentially has been a domino effect. And I got connected to a couple of larger entrepreneurs who did have the full the large following on Instagram, and I joined a mastermind. Well, a lot of people are confused about masterminds these days, and a mastermind is essentially, it can be a number of things, but what it is for me is paying for connection, because in business, it's all about relationships, and you have to be connected to the right people to get you to the right places. So whenever I was less than a year into my firm, I knew that I needed to branch out, and I knew that I wanted to scale the firm. So I knew, okay, how am I going to do this? I have to be connected to the right people that can promote me to their audience. How do you do that? Okay, well, I'll join a mastermind with 50 other people who have their large audiences, but they don't have a go-to legal person. So that's literally what I did. I paid a good chunk of money to be part of this mastermind, and I just became everybody's best friend. And I basically told them, look, I will add value to your audience by teaching them legal stuff. And it looks great on them because they're able to tell their audience, look, just by following me, you get connected to all of these amazing people in my audience and in my circle. And I will teach you everything you need to know because I have all these people in my circle. So I get connected to Chris Harder, who is a really successful entrepreneur, has multiple hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and his mastermind is full of nothing but business coaches who are basically surrounded by my ideal clients. So Chris Harder introduces me to his audience. Then people in his audience want to introduce me to their audience, and that audience wants to introduce me to their audience. So it's literally been a domino effect over the past year and a half of just being introduced to more and more people. And that's what it takes, is getting in front of your ideal audience. And there's many, many ways to do that. But you can either, obviously you can pay for it with advertising, which we do paid advertising, but the quickest way to make in order to make a sale, in order to close somebody, you have to have the know, like, and trust factor. Hopefully you guys have heard that. They have to know you, they have to like you, and then they have to trust you. Once all three of those things are there, then they're ready to buy. Well, the quickest way to get those three things, know, like, and trust, is to be introduced to somebody by somebody they trust. So Chris Harder, he has his audience who trusts him. When he introduces me to his audience, I automatically have that trust factor. And I'm jumping through hoops because they know me now, and now they're learning to like me and trust me because I'm being introduced. And this is exactly how influencer marketing has worked, and how I'm not going to say it's grown, it's just transformed to social media, because influencer marketing has always been around, but how it's transforming on Instagram and TikTok and every social media platform, it also works for attorneys. So I always like to tell attorneys, so I also run a mastermind for lawyers, and basically I tell them, look, you have to think outside the box. And just like Abe said earlier, you have to change your mindset to being a business owner. In my mastermind, that's the first thing that I teach is, look, you are no longer just an attorney. You are a business owner, and you are a business owner first, because without your business, you're not a lawyer, because you don't have clients to serve. So you have to make sure that you are bringing in the business and you have that business mindset.
Andrea, how do you pick your influencers? Are they business coaches, or what exactly? How do you pick them?
Yeah, so a lot of them are business coaches, because they're teaching entrepreneurs they're teaching small business owners how to either start a business or grow a business. So because they're already in that niche, they literally have my ideal audience in front of them. So business coaches, they're my best friends. I become their best friend. I get in their circle. I add value as much as possible, and I get to the point where I provide the business coach so much value, they feel bad by not promoting me. And that's honestly what you have to do. So when I say add value, if you go to my Instagram, it's at Andrea Sager Law. There are tons of free videos about, what's a trademark, what's trademark infringement, how do you file a trademark application. Literally, if somebody went through my Instagram and watched all of my videos, they could go through the entire trademark process themselves, which I'm sure people do. But my ideal client, they're not going to do it themselves. They're just going to hire me. But because I've educated them so much with free value, I've educated them for free to know that they need this. And now that they know they need this, they trust me because I've educated them. And that's when they hire you, is when they know they need it. And what's hard with a lot of these new business owners, I literally just had a phone call this morning with somebody who was doing something similar, but with HR. And she's an HR professional, wants to go out on her own and serve small business owners. And I basically told her, you're going to have a lot of the same issues that I had, which is getting these small business owners to realize they need your help. Because what we do is not the sexy stuff. It's not, we're going to help you make all these sales and make you $100,000 in 6 months, or no, like that's not what we do. So because we don't help them make sales and we don't have a direct ROI on their business, you have to educate with fear. And you have to educate with fear to the fact that they have to realize, if I don't get this done, I won't have a business. So that's my spiel on influencer marketing and digital marketing. I could talk all day about this stuff, but I know we have questions and other stuff.
Yeah. We have 13 minutes. I'm going to take a question from the chat, and then we'll move to some of these thematic questions. One of them is, how do you guys think about your content? And I've heard that quite a bit. So what's your take on this?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you think
Just want to make
of
sure I understand.
content? Like, how do you come up with your content? How do you come up with your content ideas?
I think about what people just ask me on a daily basis, like what kind of questions, like, FAQs. Okay, well, I get asked this question all the time. Let me make a video about it because everybody seems to want to know the answer to that. And most of the time, it's really simple stuff. Simplicity is the root to elegance, as they say. So I think, just keep it simple, keep it to the point, keep it to what people actually care about. And if you're just starting out, maybe look at other FAQ pages, see like what in your field, see what kind of things get asked a lot. Good opportunity to educate yourself if you're learning an area, to figure out, okay, what does that actually mean, and then you can create content like that. So that's how I would think about it if you're starting out.
And I also will use some prompts. Like, for example, if how there's always like a day, it's like National Donut Day or National something day or something like that. You can oftentimes use those as you'll notice content coming up on those posts. So sometimes that can kind of help, get your content sort of pushed up. So I'll kind of springboard off of those like national days and say, oh, today's National Daughter Day or National whatever day, and you can sort of draw it back in and relate it to what it is that you're doing as an attorney. So I always find that my content gets more engagement when it's relatable, because we all sort of said before, law is not the sexiest thing. So it doesn't always draw a lot of like eyeballs. Like people aren't, they'll read like the first paragraph and it's like a lot of legal advice and people are like I don't care, right? Even though I'm like, I put the content out, I'm like, this is awesome, they're gonna love it. And then it gets like two likes on it. I'm like, but I worked so hard and it's so smart and right on, like nobody cares. So I found like if I'm doing content that's more legal in nature, making the delivery of that content fun makes the engagement a lot higher. So like if I'm going to talk about, what it takes to get a trademark registered, or what's the different, evaluating the spectrum of marks, right? The strength of a mark on the spectrum. I'd rather do that in like a Reels video, or like Andrea said, I also use TikTok as well. That's been really helpful, but I'll usually reshare them to other platforms. So I'll share on TikTok and then I'll also share on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. I don't think the conversion is as high when you do that though, just so you know, because Instagram did launch its Reels function. So if you use Reels, you'll get promoted higher than if you promote a TikTok video within Instagram, just as a heads up. But that delivery can be more fun for people. And because it's in a short sort of snippet delivery, more people are apt to watch it and want to engage with it, as opposed to here's a picture and here's like this information about, a case that was just decided or something like that. But like Abe said, I'll often use examples where people are asking me questions constantly. I constantly get the same question over and over. And I'm like, okay, it's time for either a video or a post or something like that, because I'm just tired of getting this question.
Yeah, no. And one thing that I want to add there is, whenever you're creating your content, put it in the words of your audience. So I know there's been debates in like lawyer Facebook groups about, you don't just trademark something, or you can't, like certain terminology, but whenever you're marketing to your audience, you want to use that same terminology. So I've created, I've reposted videos that had no engagement, and I just changed the terminology on like the text on the reels or the TikTok video. I just changed the text to my audience's actual words. And I've had, a video recently go viral on Instagram because it was a reel and I used the words of my audience. So don't try to, even if it's not proper legal terminology, your audience doesn't care. They want to connect with you and they want to know that you're speaking their language. Because if you're not speaking their language, they don't like you, they don't trust you, and you're not gonna. Yeah, they just think you're just this stuffy lawyer who has to use this terminology. No, connect with your audience.
I will add one last thing for trademark. There's a lot of content out there. So, for example, a few weeks ago, I had a famous YouTuber, a minor, and the question of trademark ownership as a minor came up. And I had to look that up and do a little research. So I decided to just draft a blog post about it, even though that might not get a lot of eyeballs on it, but the right eyeballs will get, we'll land on it eventually. And those people are coming, you've identified that issue for them. So, they know that you're the expert in that area. So they'll come ready to actually hire you. All right. What has failed? What has not worked?
So,
a lot of things.
Yeah,
right.
There have been so many things that have failed. I mean, like I said about freebies, I've created a number of freebies that didn't work out because people just didn't care about it. You have to know what connects with your audience, and you have to know what is going to be valuable to them. Even though it's what you think you create, like Kristen was saying, like I made this amazing Instagram caption, and it was super valuable. But if it's not resonating with your audience, then it's not going to work. So what has failed? I mean, a number of freebies. There's so many things that have failed, but the good thing about what's failing is, okay, well, that's not going to work. So let me move on to the next thing. I really like this saying, fail fast, because that means you're not wasting time. So don't be afraid of what's failing or what's not working.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I mean, I could give you a ton of examples of what's failed, but I think more importantly is what Andrea just said. Just experiment. I mean, the biggest thing that I think screws a lot of startups, and I would consider anybody starting a law firm as a startup, but the biggest thing that I see is people being so hesitant to actually get started to do anything because they want to make everything perfect. They want to have their plan, their business plan, their media content, whatever. It's like, no, just start doing shit and you're going to see what works and what doesn't, and you'll adjust. Maybe you think Instagram's the right platform for you, but you realize that you're not getting any engagement. You don't like it. People don't really care. Okay, fine. Don't dwell on it. Don't lose sleep over it. Try LinkedIn, try TikTok, whatever. But just do something, because you just sit around over planning, then just go work for a large firm, because at that point you're not meant to be an entrepreneur if you're afraid to take that risk. You need to take risks.
I think one of my biggest failures would be sort of the shotgun approach with spending money on paid advertising and paid stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you really, like Andrea said, you don't really need that stuff right away. Yes, I do paid advertising now, but now that I have a proven proof of concept, I also have a freebie. It's a trademark checklist, or not checklist. She has a checklist. I have a cheat sheet. Trademark cheat sheet. But yeah, I mean, it's just something you give out for free, and it helps build your email list. But that one was one that I'd done. I'd done another one as well that didn't work, and you put money towards these things and they're not converting, and you're like, okay, and then you start moving your budget around to sort of accommodate those things. I didn't just throw up my hands and go, oh, I'm never going to use paid advertising again. You just need to understand that paid advertising is also strategic. So if your goal is to grow your list, understand that's what you're paying for, right? So you're not paying to get people coming in the door. You're not paying to get leads. You're paying to get people to grow you're paying to get your email list to grow, which can eventually convert to leads because you're going to start talking to those people with your email list through your, newsletter and your email marketing and that kind of stuff. But if you're not using, and I didn't start using, I've been running my business now for almost 7 years and going on 7 years. And I didn't start using email marketing, paid advertising, like really pointedly until this year. I never needed it before. So before it was always, oh, I'll boost this post and I'll put money to boost this post. Don't spend money needlessly on things unless you know exactly what you're spending money towards. So for me, that was sort of a learning point. But I agree with everybody else. Don't be afraid to fail because you're not failing, you're learning. Pivot and do something different. If it's not working out for you and you don't feel like it's getting you the results that you want, try something else. But give yourself an opportunity to let that attempt sort of settle in before you decide whether or not it's a failure.
If I could add one thing to that, just really quick, one thing that when I first started, I came from a corporate litigation background. So when I started doing a lot more of the trademark, filings and all that stuff, it was somewhat new to me. And I did a lot of flat fee stuff. And what I did in the beginning was just like ate the cost of my time to really learn these things. So I was charging the clients, relatively modest amounts, but and it was flat fee. So I'd be spending a lot more time in the beginning educating myself. So don't be afraid to look at it as a long-term investment if you're trying to learn a certain area of law and become better at it, because that's how you're going to become better at it. So you just have to look at it as a cost of doing business. If you're charging somebody hourly for something that's going to take you way longer than it really should because you don't really know much, it's not really fair to the client and it's going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, and to kind of add to that, oh, sorry, Andrea, go ahead.
Ooh, everybody.
No, what I was going to say about the paying for advertising, like Kristen was saying, you're not going to depending on what your prices are, but I know for where I am and where Kristen is, we're not getting clients from our Facebook ads. We're not, like, eventually they will become a client, but we're getting them into our funnel. So the last thing you want to do is create a Facebook ad that says, hey, I'm a trademark attorney, hire me to file your trademark. No. That's the last thing you want to do. And that's probably the worst thing you can do. You are wanting to add value. And I know this sounds crazy. It's like I have to pay somebody to add value. Yes, because they have no idea how much they need you in your life. And yes, you are going to pay to get in front of them. So like I said, there's a million ways to get in front of your ideal client. Paying for advertising is one of them. So you pay to provide them free value. You pay to get them to sign up for your freebie, and you get your email, you put them in your funnel, they get your emails, and eventually they're educated to the point to where they are ready to make the decision to work with you.
Yeah, it's almost like you're paying for a wider
rules.
net. Oh, sorry, Abe.
No, I was just
I'm really
say,
good
like,
at
each
this.
state has its own advertising rules. So, like, just make sure you're mindful of the requirements when you're doing attorney advertising. So just, it's something you need to be mindful of. Sorry, Kristen, go on.
No, that's okay. I'm really good at just jumping in at the exact right time. So I'm seeing if I can make it 3 for 3.
We have less than 1 minute remaining. Final question. If something is failing, how much time do you give it before you decide to pull the plug? Actually, Bree is here. Hi, Bree.
It's okay. All right, finish up. Go ahead.
Like right away.
For me, it depends on what the thing is. So
Sure.
if it's like an SEO marketing or something like that, I usually give it 3 months. Because it's proven, you have to give it some time to test it out, especially with like Facebook ads, that kind of stuff. You need to give it some time. So you have to be willing to spend that money for a few months before you can tell if it's really working or not. Some ads, not so much, 1 month just to kind of give it a test, and then a second month just to see if it works. But you should know right away, especially if you're working with an ads manager, which I would recommend if you're going to do that, at least to get the account set up, and then you can kind of run it yourself from there. But otherwise, yeah, like Abe said, if it's something else that you're like, wow, this really just didn't pan out. Like I did my first launch, I did like a paid mini course kind of thing, and it just didn't really sell. I got the people that showed up really liked it, but it just didn't really sell. So I'm not going to really like invest more money in like setting up all the funnels and doing all of the other stuff that I'd already spent money on. So that for me is, I'm just going to repurpose it and figure out something else to do with it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, all of you. As I think you know, this is something that I'm super passionate about. And frankly, I wish we could keep going for another half hour, not least because there were a ton of questions that didn't get answered. But this is a great opportunity to point out that you can schedule one-on-one meetings with one another to talk through these things. Pardon me, Kristen.
Am I rubbing off
I'm
on
blaming
you?
you for this.
Hold you through.
Yes, I got it through the platform. No, not really. But so please do schedule one-on-one meetings with one another. And also, we do have price drawings that include one-on-one consultations to talk about things like this. So if you did not fill out the form, please make sure you do. I put an announcement on that in Brella this morning. After this, we do have a 30-minute break, so go grab some lunch, and we will see you back here at 1 o'clock Eastern time for a thorough examination, an interview with a recent trademark examiner. It's actually going to be super duper helpful. Learn all about how examiners are rated and all of these other things. It's amazing. Learn tests, test search tips, all sorts of things. So thank you so very much to our panel. It was wonderful to hear from you, and thank you everybody who joined us. We will see you again in about 28 minutes. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Bray. Thanks,
Thank
Karima.
you.
Thanks, Kristen, Andrea.
Thank you.
Sorry for all
Bye.
the issues, but thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your patience.